pretty sick.
Yeah, I'm very happy that they brought me on for today for so many Zergs and Protosses. Anyhow, spawning over in the bottom left-hand side, as the French Zerg, it is Denver.
And up here in the top right-hand side of the map, we have the red Protoss player. He is Hellraiser from Team Clash. I feel obligated to like go join a motorcycle gang or something after that. Wow, that was intense.
It certainly is. I was just thinking right there and then, like, it must be hard for Hellraiser, being the other Protoss in Clash, like living in Rotterdam's shadow. Because, when people talk about the Protoss of Clash, they don't tend to think about poor little Hellraiser over here, Rotterdam stealing all the limelight and what have you. Just tough.
Yeah, no kidding. Especially since, Hellraiser is doing really, really well these days. It's like arguably more successful. Oh, man. Okay, I like this. So this is a fake out cannon rush over here because this is a map that is pretty nice for to be able to do those kind of cannon rush shenanigans just because you can build that one pylon there. And you can already see where Denver's expecting the other pylons and the cannons could go. So he was blocking that off, but not actually a massive overreaction there. It was only 2 drones pulled there from Denver, so nicely handled.
We've seen a couple of fakey cannon rush attempts, which, they've been actually handled very, very beautifully by the opposition, which has been awesome to see. I mean, these guys are so high level. But yeah, like I did talk about this before. Denver was kind of mentally broken by Hellraiser on a previous occasion when it comes to cannon rushes. So I love the fact that Hellraiser came into this series and started off something like that, like, playing with the PTSD of his opponent. That's mean. But man, is that StarCraft. I love it.
Yeah, and I'm gonna just say, Ben, with Death Aura as the next map, another really nice map for those cannon rushes, I would absolutely love if we end up seeing like a mind game where he not only played with that historical, annoyance from Denver, but then goes into game 2 and does an actual cannon rush, seeing like, okay, I tested the waters. Denver, you kind of just only pulled 2 drones. It wasn't a big reaction. Like next game, maybe I go for a cannon rush. I'd love to see that, but of course we got to see how this game pans out.
Certainly do. I'm actually interested in Hellraiser's choice of tech here, because very often on a big map like this, it can be like, okay, I'll go for like a Stargate, gets either an Oracle out, some Phoenix, or it's like, okay, I'll block the hatchery and I'll get down a Twilight Council for, some cheeky Adepts with Glaives. This, though, getting some Adepts in the main, oh my goodness, what a surround by Denver. I know he breaks out of it. Nice movement with the Adepts to kind of limit the amount of damage, but that was definitely decent by Denver, honestly.
Yeah, being able to just slow those Adepts down and getting quite a bit of damage done while they couldn't actually attack anything was nice. The fact that he managed to still get 2 drone kills, I will say, is like a saving grace there for Hellraiser, since it does equalize a little bit of the loss of those 2 Adepts. But a fast Robo Bay, Ben, and this is a Robo Bay off of just that one gateway and no units, so he's just got to rely on the pylon being built. But okay, the Stalker comes down from the high ground and he should be able to warp in something, but I'm actually still a little worried right now.
I'm very worried for Hellraiser, and as soon as I saw that Robo Bay going down, I was like, oh my gosh, no wonder you thought this play was promising, Ravi. This has cheese written all over it. But I mean, I do like seeing something a little bit different, something a little bit new. I mean, I've seen potential. I think it's going to be disruptor drops shenanigans going down, but yeah, we'll see. And yeah, it does look like it will be that. But the thing is, this map's so huge. Like, is this really the one you want to be whipping this out on? Because so far, I think Denver's handling things very well and scouting very diligently as well.
Yeah, I know. I get you in that regard. I feel like there's going to be a third behind this, though, right? Like, you can't just all in. Like, that's why I feel like it's not necessarily like what I would consider like an all-in cheese or anything. It is definitely something out of the norm, though.
Yeah, I mean, like, we'll see what Hellraiser chooses to do. Like, that's one thing that we kind of failed to mention a little bit, is Hellraiser, he's an orthodox man. Like, when the Sky Toss was all the rage, and, like, it was carriers plus High Templars and stuff, Hellraiser was like, hold on a minute, I don't even need High Templars, and we'll go pure carriers only kind of thing with that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's definitely interested in doing his own, having his own take on things. But so far, Denver's doing a really good job of just having Overlords in good position. If we just look at the vision that Denver's showing here, like good creep spread, good Overlord spread, like it is beautiful Overlord spread. Actually, he sees this Warp Prism no matter where it's going to go.
Yeah, really nicely done also with those Lings being able to scout out this Disruptor. Disruptor takes a bit of damage there before getting picked up, but does manage to at least soften up the Queens if it ever finds an opportunity to get a little bit more done, and might be able to actually pick those off. But double Stargate, as you were talking about the big carrier transition later on, Ben, yeah, that is going to be kind of in the interest there for Hellraiser to start moving toward that Skytoss army that sometimes do frustrate Zerg players, and we actually already have a Spire being dropped down for Denver. Oh, did he just cancel it?
He cancelled it, and he's like, you know what, I'm going to get Hydralist then against this kind of cheeky shenanigans. But, okay, this Disruptor, it's actually getting a little bit of damage done, but Denver's actually dealing with the Warp Prism itself very well. So now that it's actually got a lot of hull damage, it's going to be very hard to dive in again without doing anything. But wow, like Denver's scouting everything just as it goes down. Like he got to scout those Stargates like as they were halfway done. So Denver isn't getting caught out by any means this game. He's actually playing this very, very good, very smartly. Whether his reaction is the perfect one, we'll wait and see.
This is going to become a really weird attack because, oh no, the sentries don't actually throw force fields early enough. So the roaches, a lot of them get in right on top of those sentries. Even the Immortal's going to get caught. Sure, the Void Rays will never go down to the roaches or the Lings, but still we're going to end up seeing some losses being taken over here. I like that the Warp Prism was at least able to keep alive the Disruptor and push this back, but losing a lot of those sentries and a lot of the other power units there is going to be kind of painful for Hellraiser.
Yeah, like one of the big things about sentries in this case scenario is they will keep the Hydras away from the Void Rays just so the Void Rays can keep on piling out damage. This game is already weird. Like Void Rays, they're now cheaper, they build a little bit faster and all that jazz, and also they're faster than they used to be. But I do like the commitment to Void Rays. The worrisome thing is, Hydras in a real big number, it's going to be kind of tricky for Hellraiser to deal with. And what does he switch into? Oh, Colossus from here. So Colossus Void Ray. This is kind of like when we all first got the game and we're like, what kind of cool composition can we make? Colossus Void Ray, let's go.
Yeah, I mean, this is actually reminiscent of stuff that we've been seeing more and more Protoss players trying to go for, I feel like, in PvZ, where they're just like, okay, Sky Toss, just pure Void Rays. You know, there's the era of Goblin where he rose up like 3,000 MMR off of purely making Void Rays. And I was actually talking the other day with Cats when we were casting, and basically similar kind of thing, except we didn't see the Colossus transition. I think it's just been kind of acknowledged. Look, if you want to go for this like big Void Ray play and everything, you want to add on a bunch of these, having that follow-up like the Colossus, or at least going for High Templars and Storm, like you got to think about something like that. And well, like you said, this is a huge throwback to that Wings of Liberty era.
I'm unsure how it's going to work exactly. Like, let's have a look at this. Like, the big counter to this is getting a lot of Hydra Viper out, which is very, very expensive. Also, he's not going for Lair at any point. He's actually opting for Corruptors here. I mean, the Corruptors can deal with the Colossus, but the Void Rays can deal with the Corruptors, and it's the Hydras can deal with the Void Ray. Like, we're getting very, very explosive glass cannon-y armies against one another. It's gonna be interesting to say the least. Hellraiser's trying to take a fourth base, which is in the top left part. It's kind of difficult to attack it, and these roaches, let's be honest, they don't really get much done from this moment on.
Yeah, this is certainly going to be a very explosive battle, like you said. And I feel like when we have those kind of situations, seeing how the target firing and everything ends up going oftentimes becomes one of the most difficult to choose aspects of, like, how do you take this fight? Like, do the Corruptors actually try and bother with the Void Rays, or do they just go straight after the Colossus so that the Hydras can close the distance? Like, you have to make all these judgment calls in an instant, and it's not always easy, and it's very, very punishing if you get it wrong.
Yeah, it certainly is. I do like the look of Hellraiser's army, though. Like, these Void Rays, they're scary. The Colossus is also scary against the Hydras. Like, keeping those Roaches alive, even though they're not a supply-efficient unit, it's kind of good for soaking up quite a few of these Colossus hits. I'm just... like, for Denver, did he expand quick enough? Did he have a high enough work account? Like, I am a little bit scared for him, because even though he's moving in two groups here, trying to deal with Hellraiser's army, it's ridiculously tough, I feel.
Yeah, Disruptor also going to be trying to zone out of the left-hand side of this attack. And Denver is actually pulled back on the right-hand side. He's regrouping and just gathering up his army all in one location and maybe just going to try and look to hit from one side now that he's at least put a little bit of fear into Hellraiser. Hellraiser is splitting up his army a bit. So this is the time to say, well, I'll gather up everything. And now half of your army's out of position.
But do you want to be doing this with just half your army, like only the Corruptors? I mean, okay, forcing Prismatic, then running away, that's a great move by Denver. And he's actually separated this Colossus from the pack, so 3 Colossus right there in the main base. Denver's handling this very well, and he still has a lot of Corruptors and resources lost tab. He's actually trading just as good as Hellraiser.
Yeah, about to finish up that +1 flyer attack upgrade as well. So these Corruptors going to be able to take out Void Rays and Colossus even a little bit faster. Goes for 1 Colossus. I thought for a second he was going to get that Warp Prism. Maybe he's got Eye on the Prize. He managed to snag that as well. Gets the Disruptor in it at the same time. Now, Roaches and Hydras trying to make their way up that ramp, but they're going to try and retreat back to deal with this Void Ray army. We're going to see the Force Seals that you were talking about, Ben, coming on out, trying to keep some of those Hydras a little bit further back. But at the end of the day, this Roach Hydra army is a little bit too heavy. There's just no Colossus left anymore.
Hellraiser fought with half his army. Like, did you see? Like,
yeah.
The other half of his army was just sat there watching, and like, I didn't want to interrupt you, but what was he doing there? It very much felt like he's not handling this as well as he could be in Denver. He's just making short work of this army, just catching a Hellraiser very off guard. Now he's met up with the rest of his army. Now he can start shredding this a little bit, but Denver, that was, Hellraiser rather, that was definitely messily handled. He's going to try and take a 5th Nexus here, but Denver, he's not slowing down anytime soon.
Yeah, a lot of Lings just got added into. Can it be able to get the Lings in to potentially wrap around those cells that were warped in? No, doesn't decide to go for it. Pulls back, goes for it now. Corruptors are going to get shredded by these Void Rays very, very quickly, but the Hydras on the ground aren't really having to deal with the Zealots just yet. Most of them got taken out, and it does seem like even with the shield battery overcharge, the Corruptors are taking out a majority of the Void Rays. I feel like it's still okay because you were talking about that economy. Denver can replenish this. I don't know that Hellraiser really can that quickly.
Wow, and Denver, like he kind of smashed Hellraiser there. And while Denver definitely played well, Hellraiser seemed a little bit all over the place. Like he only had to defend in 2 parts. But for some reason, Denver just kept finding damage done. He split the army apart. The Corruptors snuck in there, took out a Colossus and stuff. And that Corruptible, it was just sniping units one by one. It was very, very well executed by Denver. And his army, it looked a bit glass cannon-y, right? But he definitely made the most of it. And I can't believe, like, Hellraiser, that's when it's like, please F2 a little bit, get the rest of your army in there. But the fact that you left it behind, critical mistake there. Can't afford to make that against a seemingly on-form Denver.
Yeah, and I guess maybe just pulling back to like the earlier part where we did see Denver really trying to emphasize like attacking in multiple locations, poking forward from different angles. I feel like you're right. It just kind of instilled a little too much fear into Hellraiser there, maybe, and he just was overly respecting the potential that there were going to be more units swinging in from the other side. And yeah, I feel like the other thing is, you were saying it felt like there wasn't necessarily even a whole army always there together for Denver. And it feels like maybe Hellraiser was just like, where's the rest of your army? I think there's more. I'm gonna leave these units over here to make sure you can't just get the run buy-in with the rest of the army. But that was actually everything. He just had a sick economy behind it.
Yeah, really well played by Denver. Like, even though Hellraiser tried some cheeky stuff there with this 2-base speed disruptor drop build, and then macroed into it and got away with it, Denver scouted very well, very defensively. He played good. And I just enjoyed a lot of his play, actually, that game. It was just very standard, very solid. And if you're a fan of Zerg play, it was very swarmy. Like a lot of units just charging down your opponent. And Hellraiser, he's definitely going to have to step it up a gear because Denver just showcased that he is actually in really good form.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Ben, we get to move on to Death Aura for game number 2. And this is where I get a little excited because, potentially Hellraiser gonna say, okay, that last game, try to go for the Disruptor drop, didn't quite work out, but when I fake the Cannon Rush, only 2 drones pulled. Maybe there's something here. Maybe there's an opportunity for him to do a little something here and take this to a very different type of game that has previously frustrated Denver in the past.
And like these two, they are actually very closely matched in every way, shape, and form. Like, there are MMRs, just to talk about this. I know a lot of people be like, oh, if you're not 7K MMR, then you're not... Like, that is absolutely not true. Like, some of the greatest players in the world, getting to 7K MMR, it's actually kind of difficult depending on what server you're on. But yeah, both these guys are around the 6.7K-ish mark, which is incredibly high. And going up against each other, yeah, they have that little bit of history where Hellraiser did cannon rush the crap out of Denver and made his life very, very sad. Anyhow, speaking of the man, spawning over in the bottom right-hand side of Death Aura, playing for Team Clash, it is Hellraiser.
And up here in the top left-hand side of the map, we have the blue Zerg player. He goes by the name of Denver.
So Hellraiser's actually keeping his probe down there. Now, this looks like it's just going to be kind of gateway, like very normal, very standard by Hellraiser, which is cool to see. Not like, you know how you have a lot of Protosses? They'll go for a very early scout probe to go hatch block and stuff. And even Denver there sends his first drone ahead a little bit just to check if a probe is coming, and then throws down his hatchery. Like, Denver seems very well prepared and very, like, has his timings methodically thought out. Yeah, it is always very nice to see how many little intricacies go into openings in this matchup.
Yeah, I think this is definitely one of those matchups where the openings, there's all the tiny little mind games and meta developments that feel like they change on a weekly basis of, are the Protoss players sending out the probe on 12 supply at the very beginning of the game to go for this hatch block, and Zerg's adjusting to build their hatcheries even faster, so it's physically impossible to do it. But then Protoss players are like, well, I'll just not go for a hatch block at all now. Now you're just wasting resources. So it's definitely one of those fun matchups where on a weekly basis you get to see tiny little meta changes. And God, Denver is actually still just patrolling that drone on the low ground. He's hyper respecting the potential of a cannon rush.
Yeah, man. Like, I tell you, like, he mentally broke him last time. Mentally broken. But a lot of people don't realize how much change goes into builds. Like, you can talk about a Reaper expand and such, but it will divvy from week to week as to what is working the best right now, given Zerg's recent response to things, or Protoss's recent responses, and it will change so, like, minutely that keeping on top of it all and keeping ahead of the meta is actually a difficult thing to do. Hellraiser is actually opting for a Stargate this game, so a far more normal opening by our Protoss this time.
Yeah, I can definitely dig it. I think that last game going for the Disruptor drop, it clearly didn't do as much damage as he wanted it to. First of all, getting scouted by the Lings as it was making its way across the map, made it really easy to just make sure that Denver had his units in prepared positions to effectively completely shut down any attempts to actually get any real damage done for the pretty much the entire lifespan of the Disruptor drop. I think it got like 4 drone kills in the end. That was like it. So I like just returning to a more normal opening.
Okay, Void Ray first. Now you might be looking at this being like, oh, this is super weird, right? No, well, the Void Ray's kind of taken the spot of the Phoenix nowadays. It kills Overlords a little bit faster. It can deny like the 4th base. It can deal it. It's just a bit more of a threat. And given that it's actually significantly cheaper than it used to be, it just makes more sense having a single Void Ray than a single Phoenix on the map.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it can help out with all-ins and stuff if your opponent decides to go for those. It doesn't run out of energy, quite like an Oracle. Yeah, definitely a nice adjustment that a lot of pro players have made in the matchup and everything. But we got Spore Crawlers coming on out there for Denver, just respecting the fact that there's probably going to be some kind of follow-up. And some players even like to get actually pretty aggressive with their Void Ray and actually go straight over to like a 3rd base location or something, try and pick off a drone or 2. So I like that.
I was about to say, Hellraiser's up to no good again because he got his 3rd and 4th gas very quickly. Very quickly, in fact. So that second Stargate is starting, and continuous Void Ray production is being done by him. Now, that is obviously, this is a little odd. This is very much like Down Goblin's Alley or something like that. But I'm interested to see how it works because I feel this is one of those, oh, nice Oracle micro. Oh, nice Spore Crawler micro as well to try and save some of those drones, which he does pretty damn well. But yeah, this game's, it's going to be fiery already.
Yeah, I think so. Like you said, the interesting part to me is gonna be what is the transition point after you make a handful of these Void Rays, right? Because he's made 2 Void Rays, he's got a little supply block, so he's waiting for those pylons to finish up. He's gonna make some more. But I feel like around the time that you get like 5-ish Void Rays, you have to start thinking about the transition. And we do have the Robo being added on now, so I feel like this is probably gonna be going back into that Colossus style right afterwards, right?
I don't know yet. I don't know. Like getting the Robo in the Forge, it probably indicates he wants to get ground upgrades and maybe play a few cannons and stuff. But this could also be that he wants to go full on Sky Toss. Like the world is his oyster right now. He hasn't been scouted, which is also a big deal. Like Denver's doing the right thing by droning up a lot, but +1 air weapons is committed to now for Hellraiser. So again, he is obviously committing. We knew that already. As for when he wants to take a 4th and stuff and what he wants to do with this, it is scouted now by Denver, which is nice for him.
All right. As the Voiders make their way across the map, a Robo Bay is being added on back at home. A Hydra Den is being added on for Denver. And he's getting a position with these queens after having seen the angle the Voiders are coming from. But this is a funky map because you can actually dart between either the 3rd base or the main base with that dead airspace. But Void Ray number 1 taking a lot of damage over there, having to back off. And I think this is where you think, okay, I gotta maybe regenerate some shields and then go straight to the main because I know the queens are all sitting at the 3rd. It's gonna take some time to get over to the main.
It's just okay, so spores were over here, so it's going to take out the gases and stuff, and you might be like, well, what's a gas doing? Well, slowing down the tech of his opponent is pretty decent. Oh, is he going to lose a Void Ray? Oh, just gets away, so it will replenish its shield over time, but killing 2 extractors, so that's not just the money for the extractor, it's the 2 drones, the spore as well, the money for the spore. So far, not too bad by Hellraiser, but is this army, we saw it get pulled apart the previous game when he didn't really get much done early on, and I feel that this might be leading to the same demise for Hellraiser.
One thing I like a bit more about this game versus the last game is the transition, like the movement into this Void Ray Colossus play is coming faster though, right? Because the last game, he went into Disruptor drop with fast speed prism and everything, then added on the Stargates, then after he had like a decent number of Voiders, started making the Colossus and everything. This is kind of skipping the entire first step, so I think everything is coming a little bit faster, and I wonder if that's going to make the difference for him.
Yeah, definitely. So, like, we're just going to... Lurker's being the choice of tech, as long with Aspire by Denver, so... Like, he knows what he's up against by the looks of it, but... Yeah, definitely going about it in a very, very different way here. So maybe it feels like maybe you're right here that he didn't go up against this disruptor tech that didn't really do much. He went up against a much earlier 3rd. Maybe he feels like he can't just kind of muscle mode it down. So he's going to play a bit more technical, with a bit more finesse here. So we're going to see a very different Zerg response to this from Hellraiser, and I like it.
Yeah, when I think about the Lurkers versus not just Void Ray, like Void Ray High Templar or something, but like Void Ray Colossus, I usually don't feel like the Lurkers are doing a lot until you have those hive tech upgrades, right? Because otherwise, it's not like the Lurkers are really trying to burrow in right on top of the Colossus or something, and the Voiders are in the air, so the Lurkers aren't actually hitting them. So I do wonder if that's also a signal that Denver's just going to try and play it back a little bit more defensive until he gets up that hive tech with the infestation pit finish, and then think about how to, I guess, like put the pressure on with the Lurkers on the ground and the Hydras for the air.
Yeah, like I'm looking at this production tab right now for Denver, and you know, he's expanding really well. He's been ahead in workers for quite some time, like up to a really high number here, 89. Okay, so now he gets his hive tech on the way. I mean, it's maybe a little bit late, but after actually scouting this army thoroughly this time, he just added on a ton of corruptors and hasn't actually started doing anything. Oh, now he's starting to make the lurkers and stuff. Okay. I was wondering if he changed his mind. He was just going to go for the brute force again. Immortals being added on for Hellraiser. I like that choice. It adds a bit of stockiness to his ground army against the Hydras. Yeah,
I think so. I feel like in the last game, he didn't get as much of a chance to even try and go into some of those Immortals, just because his Colossus, he got out as like third or so Colossus, had a little bit of a halt in production for the Robo to get out some more Void Rays, and then the attacks just started coming in, he started losing Colossus he was trying to replenish, so this game is going to be kind of nice for him to get those double immortals out at a time, especially when he's going to be dealing with those lurkers.
Fleet Beacon on the way, more gateways. Like, this is going super late game for the both of them. And whenever I look at a Protoss army like this that has kind of like Storm as well as everything else, like this is definitely a super powerful army. The thing is, it does obviously have big counters, like if you can land Parasitic Bomb and just kind of smash it down quickly. But for now, he's hit 200 supply a lot faster than Denver. And Denver's resorting to a lot of static defense here. So Denver, he's respecting this army a lot, but he's not playing the kind of game where he's just going to smash it quickly. And in fact, we see so many spines, so many spores going up absolutely everywhere.
Yeah, and I think he has to buy some time, right? Because he went and invested into this high tech, and we were saying, like, lurker upgrades are going to be important. Having the Vipers with energy, he basically is just now finishing up his first couple of Vipers, and they still need to have energy to do the abducts to try and deal with this army. He's not quite there yet, and I think Hellraiser is actually going to be poking in at a really, really nice time, maybe like 15 to 10 seconds before Denver's fully prepared for this.
This is when I get a bit worried for Denver, because I'm not sure how, like, this army from him is very hard to control when you get the Vipers in there. And I mean, depending on how the feedbacks go and the Void Rays go, like, they can snipe out those Vipers at the sky very, very quickly. So this is going to be a real rough one for him. The Lurkers are doing pretty good against the ground, but they don't yet have all those upgrades that they really need against this.
Yeah, I think he just finished up one of them, so he has the fast burrow, and I think that's going to be a really, really vital one. I'm not sure he has started the range upgrade for those lurkers just yet, but all right, looks like Hellraiser is actually starting to commit a little bit further in. He's taking out these spore crawlers one by one. High Templar is still alive, still got that energy around as well.
Look how committed Denver is into getting so many Corruptors, by the way. Like, this Corruptor count, he's got 9 more in production. He's already at 20. So
29 Corruptors.
Yeah, he's super respecting this, and oh, this reminds me of Serral's play right now, where you start yoinking the units one by one and start picking out the Protoss very, very carefully and diligently. And still the drone count, he's at 80 drones with all this static defense. I think Denver's got a really good overall game plan this game.
Yeah, I think so. He obviously is going to come down to a little bit of control now. You see feedback on one of the Vipers, feedback on all of the Vipers. Would love to see, this is like a small thing that some Zerg players love doing, which is adding in just a couple of Overseers with that Viper Corruptor Cloud. Because unfortunately for Protoss players, when you just try and feedback everything that has energy, you're going to end up feedbacking maybe like the Overseers a lot. So you got to be really, really careful with those clicks sometimes with the feedback.
You know, considering Protoss, I'm not sure how they tend to go about the late game against this kind of composition, but the longer you make it last like this, I feel the harder it just gets for you overall. Granted, he is going for the really big upgrades here. He's getting +3 attack, but his army, it doesn't feel like it gets really that much stronger. And it's not as if he can creep forward his static defense too well. He is transitioning into carriers, though. That definitely helps out quite a bit, unless they get yoinked and sniped down.
I think the one thing I'd love to see from Denver, on top of, you know, getting up that next transition point, is maybe adding on a Dark Shrine. I say that not just because, you know, I really love Dark Shrines, but it's a nice way to put low supply offensive. But here we go. We got a lot of storms coming out on these lurkers. It looks like quite a few of the ground units over here for Denver again taken out. There's not that many Void Rays left alive, but it's enough to, at least with the Archon, scare back those Corruptors. And Hellraiser making some really big strides over here. 15 Corruptors in production, 6 Hydras, but I mean, after the Corruptors, even if they may just take out all these Colossus and even the Void Rays, there's actually enough of a ground force here for Hellraiser. I don't know that Denver's making enough for that.
No, there's no more storms left, but these Corruptors, they are melting away to these Void Rays, these Archons. All the Colossus do fall, but there's just so much Hellraiser. That was the mistake he was looking for from Denver. He pushes through. He melts everything. The resources lost tab tells the tale of this game. Denver trading 20k resources to 10, and GG Hellraiser takes the second game of the series.
Wow, all right, well that is the kind of engagement that he was really looking for, right? Having all of the tools that he needed to handle that army. We're going to talk about that game in a little bit, but we're going to first go to a short break before we come back with game number 3. Don't go anywhere. We got a tied up series of 1-1 here in game number 3 between Denver and Hellraiser. Hellraiser had a hard time making that Colossus Void Ray style workout in the first game, but definitely showcasing how strong you can be when you add in a few extra components there in game number 2, Ben.
Certainly did. And, you know, that Zerg army is actually very hard to use correctly. And having anything out of position for just like, you know, a moment too long, or not having quite enough static defense. Hellraiser he found his moment. He had a huge bank as well to just kind of keep the tempo rolling afterwards, and very well played by the Ukrainian, actually. And he did manage to tie up the series. And now we're going on to Romanticide, and spawning over in the bottom right-hand side as the Blue Zerg, it is Denver.
And over in the top left-hand side of the map, we have the red Protoss player representing Team Clash. She is Hellraiser.
Romanticide, one of the newer maps in the map pool, and it's definitely interesting. So there's potential for like a 4th base with a rich gas, which so far that would definitely complement, I guess, both their styles, seeming as they both kind of like the late game situation. Hellraiser just totally not going for any sort of hatch block. So Denver, he's had one of the nicest times just getting his natural up without any sort of worry whatsoever this series.
Yeah, a good identification there from Denver to just say, well, you just seem to always go for the probe scout after gateway, so I really don't need to worry about this. Still gonna have the drone over there on the high ground. It's, for those who are wondering, it's both checking out to see when it can see the probe, but also preventing a 3-pylon wall on the high ground that could go into a cannon rush. So yet again, we still see that Denver just doesn't want to mess with the cannons. Just willing to sacrifice a little bit of early game economy to ensure that does not happen.
So without taking too much away from Denver, I think Denver's very good at just kind of like accumulating an army and massing, and then good at like fighting with it. The spellcastery additions, though, it felt like Hellraiser was much better in the like feedback fight scenario. So I would love to see Denver play to his strengths a little bit, and maybe against Hellraiser's potential weaknesses, because Hellraiser, he seemed more than apt at dealing with that late game situation.
Yeah, absolutely. It felt like he was very, very comfortable with it for sure. So I guess that probably does start to, I guess, iron out what Hellraiser was probably thinking about approaching this game, right? Like, we saw him try and go into that composition eventually in game number 1. Didn't quite work out, but he had a different start. And game number 2, it worked out really well, even when it felt like Denver was aware what was going to happen. He still had trouble with it. So game number 3, especially with another Stargate being added on, that's probably what you do again, right? Unless you have some crazy mind game to make it look like the same thing, but not.
Yeah, like if I'm Hellraiser, like I'm thinking, okay, that went so well, I'm gonna go for it again. So I just play not to die, and then we get to the late game situation. And if you're Denver, it's like, okay, I can't let that happen again. I'm probably gonna try and kill him beforehand. And maybe if both of these guys are thinking like that, Hellraiser's gonna be like, okay, he's gonna throw something at me really wild this game, so I've got to be ready for anything. And you know, you have this crazy spiral of thoughts that can really get you. Nice Stalker timage popping out there. Oh, Oracle first by Hellraiser. So he's mixing up his builds a little bit here, even though it is Stargate first again. I like it when players do that, even when something worked out for them.
Yeah, and I feel like especially right after you lose, we start to see a lot of players sometimes will take more risks, especially if they lose in like the later stages, because they're like, okay, how do I get to that same situation? If I have to get into that same situation, how to get there being a little bit further ahead. So sometimes players will do things like skip a Spore Crawler or delay them a little bit, because it's like, you know, they're going to go for a Void Ray first. Like, I can just get the Spore Crawlers a little bit later, but Denver not going to do anything of the sort. Decides to get out those Spore Crawlers right in time and should be very much so ready for those Oracles, as long as its queens are in the right position.
And like we have to remember how important this series is. Right now, Hellraiser is sitting at 2-1, which is a decent spot. I think he's around 3rd place, whereas Denver, he's 3-0. So either one of these players, it's a big match for trying to finish top 2 in this group.
Absolutely. And just to put that in also more context, right, is that Hellraiser, he might have lost one more series than Denver, but Hellraiser's already played Raynor. Denver has yet to play Raynor, and that's the really tough one that you're like, okay, probably everyone loses to Raynor. So if Hellraiser can beat Denver, like that would be the big contentious player that you're going to probably be fighting for that second place seed.
Hellraiser he's going for more oracles after getting, in fact, he's going for way more oracles. He's going up to 3 here, and this Void Ray was also in the mix. Not yet. Okay, now he's taking his third. Definitely a later third. Now going into Hellraiser plays weird, man. He definitely plays weird.
Yeah, I'm always a big fan of seeing these kind of builds where we end up seeing like the oracles coming out with a bunch of Resonant Glaive Adepts, and you just hit with both of them at the same time, and it's so tough for the Zerg player to make sure that they both have the right army composition to deal with this and also the units in the right place. But that Zergling, really key, is going to scout out and see, wait a second, 7 Adepts making their way across the map. There's also an Oracle made earlier that did survive. Like, I gotta respect the idea of this. He's getting out his roaches, but it's not just having the units, it's making sure they're all in the right place.
Certainly is. These Adepts, you know, they're kind of revealing themselves, and right now he's just trying to keep Denver honest, right? In fact, they've gone all the way back home, but the real clincher here is Hellraiser hoping that Denver moves out on the map and then he dives in with an Oracle in each base? Does he do 3 stasis wards at once kind of thing? Like, what is the weird, evil genius plan here for Hellraiser? Yeah.
I mean, I definitely like that first Adept poke forward because you saw like a bunch of roaches and lings made super early on, and yeah, they could have been drones a little bit longer, and now we end up seeing that Denver's going into drones, but this ling counterattack going to be able to find not only the sentries, but also a lot of pros at the third base. This is going to put the pressure onto Hellraiser. He has to get more damage done. There's a stasis trap in the main base, and another stasis trap went down to the third. Catches the queen at the third, catches a few drones. Denying the fourth is one thing, but you have to get some damage on after the damage you just took.
Certainly does, but so far, Denver's pretty much bulletproof, man. He had units patrolling in all the right locations. Yes, he got the fourth denied, but he didn't really take too much damage. Now he's taking a few drone losses, and he also killed quite a few workers on the other side of the map. Oh, that's a nice stasis, though. That is good for Hellraiser.
Yeah, definitely a good start there, but now having to retreat all the way back home is starting to probe back up a little bit further, back up to 56 workers with 3 on the way at a time. It looks like he is really just getting ready for the big transition here, getting on Immortals, getting up on some weapons, and the Void Ray should help out a lot with this kind of roach counterattack.
It should, especially with the Adept support. So the Adept, they take the shots instead of the probes, and these roaches, they do run home packing. I guess one nice thing for Denver is he gets to see that it is like what army it's turning into, right?
Oh, an Aspire being added on. I mean, Ben, I will say, even though there is a Stargate out, there was no Phoenix made earlier on, right? This is one of the transitions that a lot of Protoss players have made, going from the Phoenix opening to Void Ray instead. There's no Phoenix out on the map. You see that is pure Adept and Immortal. There's nothing that actually shoots up over here. These Oracles have a huge job to actually get some scouting information on this, but I don't think they're going to dive that far in.
Yeah, like, if you are Hellraiser, though, and I mean, he's already getting Blink, which isn't a bad alternative to dealing with, like, mutas if they do pop out. And Denver's gas count, like, the fact that his fourth base is as late as it is, I think Hellraiser's getting himself into a neat position here. Like, he has to get something done.
Well, he's going to be moving across the map right now. Going to find a couple of those Adepts that were making their way over. The Oracles dive back in, though, and find a handful of drones. That's going to be a nice start. 8 mutas on the way. Maybe just going to join up with the big attack on the other side of the map. But it looks like Denver is starting to pull back. Is he just regrouping? Or is he actually just going to try and pull all the way back?
Okay, so Denver... Like, he's going into that mode, right, where he's like, okay, I don't really want to play late game against this guy, which I think was the right choice. And he has to try and get damage done, but now it's about sneaking these mutas over to the other side of the map. And Hellraiser, he needs to realize what's going on here, because this army, it isn't really getting any extra tech in it. And, like, whether he's realizing that or not, there's no extra cannons going down.
No, Denver, not that angle. Not against all those sentries and Immortals. And like you said, there's a cannon already over here. So 8 mutas, it can take care of the cannon. It can still do a lot of damage. But as soon as there's a quick warp in, like you said, Ben, Blink just finished. He can actually warp in a bunch of stalkers and very quickly react. Oh, that's a cute move. It doesn't actually prevent the cannon from attacking, but it's a cute move.
Even pros make mistakes sometimes, okay, team? I actually thought it was going to stop it as well for a moment, just because Denver was so confident about it, but only stops production, I think, is what it does. But now this ace card, the ace up his sleeve, it got 10 probes to start things off, which is definitely decent. But now Phoenix are joining the field, and I think Denver realistically would have loved more out of these mutas.
Yeah, and that first Phoenix actually takes a bit of shield damage there. Is not going to be able to finish off one of those mutas, but we're not okay, I was going to say probably going to see any more mutas, but we actually have 14 out on the map, so there definitely were a few more made there. But now a lot of that gas is just going to be going into the Banelings. There are so many sentries, Ben. I feel like if Hellraiser's on point with his force field, this should be an incredibly tough fight for Denver.
It should be. There's a lot of Banelings, and speed isn't yet completed. And I mean, these Banelings are getting really... Oh my god, they're all locked into the bottom here. The Nexus finishes, but with barely any health. Oh my god, Denver leaves it and runs away. I mean, like, okay, the mutas, they're over in the main base, so maybe Denver just, like, doing too many things at once. But his army, it's ready. It's in position here to take out that fourth base, if he does so please. These mutas taking a little bit of a beating from the army of Hellraiser. But Hellraiser is producing 2 Phoenix at a time. I'm so surprised Denver hasn't gone in and finished that Nexus off, honestly.
I think he's about to go right now, and guess what? Hellraiser is actually just tiny bits out of position to actually save it, and yeah, it's gonna end up falling over here. He's gonna continue committing though. Okay, I liked this Nexus snipe. I don't know if it's a great idea to continue committing over here.
That's a lot of Banelings,
Okay.
and pooh, all those probes falling over at the third base of Hellraiser. I think Denver's doing it here, man. Like, he went for it. He was like, okay, I can't let you get to the late game that you really do obviously want. And oh my goodness, these Banelings getting so much done.
Yeah, and remember that microing the Phoenix themselves against the mutas actually takes quite a bit of APM and a lot of control, while Denver's just hitting them from every single angle. I feel like this is now the point where Hellraiser's on 33 workers, right? You can try and replenish that worker count, but this is definitely the point where a lot of pros players are like, all right, do I just box everything? Do I just go for it, kill these mutas, and then just go across the map, do some damage? Because I feel like I'm going to have to soon.
This is the worst spot, by the way. You've dealt with the mutas now, and you're still making Phoenix, whereas Denver, he hasn't made an air unit in quite some time. He's just been focusing on the ground, and look at this. There's just so much Denver at this point. Granted, still a lot of Hellraiser ground units. Some probes are falling, but Denver's economy is so wild.
Yeah, you can see a little caution there. I was going to say caution and not just blinking forward onto those Banelings and Roaches and Ravagers, but oh, I like this. The Phoenix are actually going to be able to pick off a handful of these units because there's no anti-air. There's a Hydra Den that just got added in right now. There's an infestation pit that is allowing the hive, but a lot of the Ravagers getting picked off. Remember, if the Ravagers are all get taken out, there's actually nothing to knock down the force fields anymore.
That is absolutely true, and it is funny. They're actually getting quite a lot of damage done, and Hellraiser is trading this purely for energy, and given how well it's going, I actually like the choice that he's adding on even more of them. The thing is, he is going to need something a bit more stocky to deal with this amount of, like, Ling Bane that's on the field.
Yeah, well, he's taking out a lot of the Banelings.
Just
like
lift them all up. Just lift them all up. You know, that's working as well, but...
Sentries?
Force fields?
Okay. Force is coming out a little bit late. He is going to be able to save quite a few of the probes. Remember, +2 weapons is done, so those probes do get one shot by the Banelings. All in all, that looked a lot scarier than I thought it was going to end up being for Hellraiser.
To be fair, like, Hellraiser's handling this super damn well, and he's trading really good, and these Phoenix just getting super good trades against the Hydras even. I wouldn't be like, I'm scared for Denver. If Hellraiser chooses to go in the next minute or so, I think Denver could be in a lot of trouble, but Denver's just so rich, and Hellraiser doesn't want to move out. He wants to play it slow. He wants to buy time to get his economy back up and running. I'm not sure. Like, playing catch-up is one thing, but he has to play a real long game of catch-up to win like this.
Yeah, also just, I mean, it's a big signal that he just warped in 5 more sentries going up to 8, so he is going to be heavily relying on those force fields. I mean, this is almost a Wings of Liberty Protoss now, where yes, we got maybe like a couple of remaining adepts, but this is Blink Stalker, Sentry, Immortal with the Colossus and Phoenix. These are all basically StarCraft 2 Wings of Liberty units, and he's going to try and make some magic happen. That one Baneling Oh boy, might be able to get a lot of damage, but I think this is where the entire fight's going to be coming from. Bailey's coming in from behind. The force fields almost lock it out, and it still doesn't actually take too much damage. A lot of the stalkers are able to absorb that damage. This base looks like it's probably going to end up falling, but oh, the Vipers are such an important part of this composition now.
They certainly are, and yoink, that is one Colossus down immediately. The second one, even without the Viper energy. And the Zerg army is just wrapping around the Protoss, and the Protoss is trying to do whatever he can, lifting up units, blinking aggressively into the Hydras and the Lings and the Banes. I'm not sure that was the right move, but the Protoss standing sort of strong here, but there's just too much Zerg by the looks of it. His economy's still very decent, but no, the Blink's in again. Denver, does he run away from this? Does he keep on going? More Lings now joining, and Hellraiser types GG. Denver takes